This episode may contain content that could be distressing or objectionable to certain listeners. Please refer to the episode show notes for details. Discretion is advised. Hello. Welcome to Your Movie, My Movie with Dan and Steve.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Steve. This is a podcast where one of us picks a movie to watch and we discuss it together. In this episode, we're talking about one of my picks, the 2014 movie The Duke of Burgundy, starring Sitsi Babbitt Knudsen and Chiara D'Anna, and was written and directed by Peter Strickland. We will be talking about spoilers, so if you want to watch the movie first, now's the time to do so. But before we talk about the movie, Dan, who would you recommend this movie to?
I've been trying to think about that since we finished the movie. And oh man. People with an open mind. And definitely not my family.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'll say.
That's fair. That's very fair.
It's a wild ride.
Mm-hmm. Sure is.
Many wild rides.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, Steve.
Yes.
Who would you recommend this movie for?
If you're someone who wants to see two young, good-looking guys just fucking in the mud the way God intended, this is not the movie for you. This is not that movie.
No,
it's not that movie for sure. So if you don't want to watch that, watch this movie instead. That's what I would recommend it to.
That's fair.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Mm-hmm. So where do you want to start, Dan?
Oh, man. So I guess just to start off, this is not really my wheelhouse.
Uh-huh.
I don't know a lot about...
why don't you ask me why I picked this movie?
Hey, Stephen, why did you pick The Duke of Burgundy?
Well, I picked The Duke of Burgundy because I thought it would be an excellent movie to compare and contrast God's Own Country with.
I see.
Yeah.
In what ways?
Well, before we get to that, I watched this movie like after God's Own Country.
Oh, really? So you watched it really recently?
Yeah, very recently for the first time.
Okay.
Yeah. But I remember when it first came out, way back in 2014, I was listening to this movie review podcast called the B Movie Podcast, and they mentioned this movie. And they didn't mention much about it except for how gorgeous it looked.
Okay.
Which this movie does look incredibly gorgeous.
It does.
So, and then I read up on it, a little bit later, and, it made the rounds on the streaming services and whatnot. And so, knowing a little bit about it, I decided to watch it more, watch it, see for myself what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, this is a great movie to compare and contrast God's Own Country with. So yeah, that's why I picked it.
And why, what about it are you comparing and contrasting in your mind?
Well, for one, God's Own Country, that's about a male gay couple, whereas this one is about a lesbian couple.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, very different socioeconomic circumstances between the two.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, God's Own Country, that's very blue collar, very rural.
Mm-hmm.
here in the Duke of Burgundy. The beginning credits, they credit lingerie and dress by. And they also have a credit for perfume.
Yes, I saw that. I was so confused. I was like, what?
Well, are you surprised after watching it that this movie credits perfume?
No, but I don't know how they credited perfume. Like, what? Am I supposed to smell that while I'm watching the movie?
But I think you can feel the perfume. The way that it's shot.
But do you actually think they wore that during the set? Is that what you think happened?
I think so, yeah.
Or is this like a thing that I'm not...
Well, I think it might be some kind... I think it might have been, what do you call it, an endorsement? Where they got the perfume for free, or they got money from whoever supplied the perfume to help finish the production.
Because I saw that, I was like, is there some sort of position in Britain that is different than U.S. film crews?
I mean,
the perfumer who makes sure that whenever someone goes to the bathroom, they just spray the bathroom down. I don't know.
I don't think I don't know. Because on one hand, I think maybe the British have too much class in that, but on the other hand, the British are kind of proud of their working men and women, so maybe they do. I have no idea.
I don't think so. I think it's literally just like a perfume endorsement, like you already said.
Yeah.
But I was so confused when I saw that at first.
But you can still feel the perfume. I mean, that's the funny thing about perfume commercials.
Uh-huh.
How do you sell a scent? Through visual and audio. So that's why they come up with, all those, pretentious, artsy, movie kind of commercials for perfume to try to get women to buy a scent without smelling it.
I see. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's interesting.
Interesting is a non-word.
I'm okay with that for now.
That's fair.
Sometimes we need non-words.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I didn't even think about the socioeconomic differences. I definitely thought about it while watching this movie about how much... I was just like, this is just some insane bored white woman shit. My God. How much money and how much free time.
Well, I mean, that is a very weird thing about this movie, because it's in that regard, this movie reminds me a lot of both John Wick, but also Eyes Wide Shut, where, maybe more Eyes Wide Shut.
I haven't seen Eyes Wide Shut.
Okay, but have you seen John Wick?
Yeah.
Okay, so there was a shadow in John Wick. There's a shadow world.
Yeah.
In John Wick, there's a shadow world of these assassins and criminals who all work together to do their thing, right?
Yeah.
In this movie, it feels like there's a shadow world of British countryside lesbians who are kinky.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because of that scene where, they want to get a bed for Evelyn. And so they bring in a furniture maker, and then the furniture maker says, oh, well, I just, made one for somebody right down the street.
Yes. That part was really cool. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
But that is a hilarious, connection that you have in your mind. But I see it.
Well, I mean, there's also Dr. Schuler and the whole drama between her and her polished boots.
Yeah.
So so when you see the Institute and they're at their meeting talking about butterflies, they're all just kinky lesbians who are wealthy because of their rare butterfly collections, because that's how they were going to pay for the bed.
Well, yeah,
and the human toilet. They're going to give the furniture maker these rare butterflies.
Well, that's how they offered one thing. Yeah. I don't feel like they got rich by being...
Oh, no.
No, okay. No. All right.
No, they're old money, and they establish themselves, and this is how they keep it going. Yeah.
This was a really crazy movie.
It's crazy, but it's not crazy.
Absolutely right. I mean? You're right. It's totally... It's crazy, but it's not crazy. And thinking about it after watching it, I was like, it's really not that explicit at all.
No. You don't see any nudity at all, I don't think.
You see like a tiny bit, but no.
Oh, okay.
Not really. But it's just a wild ride of concepts, I guess, and ideas, and also it's crazy the sort of power dynamic that is constantly being shifted throughout the movie.
Yeah.
And I think it's just like it's so out of my range of understanding that I'm gonna have a hard time talking about it, but I'll try. But it's really interesting. I know it's a non-word.
It's fine. You can use it. I'll shut up about it.
No,
for this episode.
I think it's a funny bit that we keep throughout.
I'm still going to use a bit. I'm just going to shut up about it for this episode because you're. It feels like It feels like you feel like you're out of your depth with this movie
a little bit, just because I've not been exposed to really like kink stuff or I've had a pretty vanilla life up until now or
well, you're young, there's still time.
I appreciate your faith in me.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I just don't know anything about it. I mean, I know some things, but like very cursory.
Right.
And it's more just hearing things and hearing people talk about things on social media.
Yeah, probably like pop cultural osmosis from like what is it? 50 Shades of Grey and
that kind of thing. That. Or like just like people's aesthetic, like Tumblr stuff, because like this I feel like is a Tumblr movie.
Really?
Tumblr core movie. Yeah. Are you kidding me?
Well, I'm not that huge into Tumblr. What I know from Tumblr, I just get through Reddit.
Got you.
So
well, this definitely feels like something the Tumblr people would eat up and share like widespread in a way.
Okay, why is that?
Well, Tumblr is sort of, or it was before they, because I'm not a big Tumblr person, but Sierra is a big Tumblr person, and I have gotten Tumblr. But basically it's just like, it was this sort of, it's almost like you create this little website world for your aesthetic and for things you think are interesting or cool or, like, I don't know. There's just a lot of like people posting aesthetic erotic stuff on there because they think it's like, because they think it matches their personality or because they think it expresses themselves in a way. So it's a lot of, and there was like they basically made it so you can't have nudity on it. Like a few, I don't know, like I don't know how many years ago, but that changed Reddit and basically, I'm sorry, not Reddit, Tumblr, and made it a completely different sort of platform from what I understand. But that core identity of Tumblr of like this Wild West for, horny people and, but also like self-expression in the same way. So it's not just horny, it's like self-expressive horny.
Yeah.
From what I am perceiving.
Yeah, well, this movie is very expressive, especially through the dress and the lingerie. Yeah. I mean, I think you could watch this movie and not have the sound on and, just like enjoy just how gorgeous this movie is with the costume design, the production design, and the way it's shot, the cinematography of it.
Yeah, I think also they have, it's really great visual storytelling. You don't need a lot of dialogue in this movie. Like you can tell things, like when we freaking see them at the convention, and it's Evelyn, right? Evelyn and Cynthia.
Evelyn is the submissive. Cynthia is the dominant.
Yeah. So Evelyn is looking at the boots, and we see her looking at the boots, and then we see her look up, and then we see Cynthia see Evelyn seeing the boots, and it's like there's nothing. It's not so subtle. You can tell what's going on, but you have to be paying attention, and it's clear. But it's just there's no words being said.
Did you notice that at the end of the movie, Cynthia puts on boots just like this? Yeah.
Although I think she already had big long
she might
boots.
already had them too. Yeah.
But it was that power dynamic of.
But another very visual shot was when the furniture maker comes in, and so she measures the bed. But she doesn't look at her tape. She stares at Evelyn, and Evelyn stares at her.
Yeah.
And it's so slow. But in a good way, and there's all this harpsichord music. I hope you guys like harpsichord music. Because it's all that plays. It's all that plays. Except for the weird David Lynch soundtrack made from butterfly noises, apparently.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah.
But I think it's moth noises.
Moth. Okay.
Which is very different thematically too, I think. I mean, there are some butterflies shown, I think.
Well, the Duke of Burgundy, it's a butterfly.
Is it really?
Yeah, and that's what they're studying. They're studying butterflies.
I thought they were talking about moths, though.
No, butterflies.
I thought it was both.
Well, it could be both.
Because I was thinking we definitely saw a bunch of moths in the movie. I think it was both.
Yeah, it's both. It's both for sure.
Because
the Duke of Burgundy is a specific type of butterfly. Okay. And that's why the movie is named that.
Interesting. I wonder what that symbolizes or whatever. That's really interesting. But I was thinking moths are very, they're known for their pheromones and as a symbol of sensuality almost. So that's what I was thinking. It was just moths.
Well, moths are also attracted to flames, and this is kind of a passionate movie where burnout happens, basically. Yeah. So moths is also a good symbolism for the movie as well.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But also butterflies that are pinned to things just to be looked at. I think that's how Cynthia feels in regards to Evelyn.
Yeah. Great work there, Detective Steve.
Well, I try.
You succeed.
So let's finally explain a little bit about the movie now.
Okay, yeah.
So I have one question for you. What time period is this movie set in?
I think it's from. Well, I'm not good at history. I'm not good at British people. Or much of anything. But I'm guessing 1910s or 20s.
Really?
Am I way off? I didn't see any cars.
Well, that's my whole thing. There's no cars in this movie. Nobody has.
There was glue on eyelashes. I don't know how recent that is.
Yeah, that's true too. There are no cars in this movie. Nobody has a smartphone. I think if we see a phone, it's the old style landline kind, and probably an antique one at that. There's no computers because they write on typewriters instead of computers.
Yeah, well, it's definitely not modern.
And everybody bikes everywhere.
So it's probably not 1910s. It's probably
or is it modern day? But these people are just so wealthy.
It's just like an Amish community or type rich people community full of uber rich.
Yeah. They're just so wealthy that
they forego.
They can afford.
Yeah.
To not need a computer. I
don't think it's that either, but
okay.
I think there's a time period where there were groups like these where women would gather and discuss these. I forget what this hobby is called. Or not hobby, but, study.
Well, she called it an institute. And the institute, and what it is they go to an institute made up of just women and mannequins. Because if you see in those group shots at the institute, I saw at least 2 mannequins in the crowd.
Really?
Yeah, there's even one in that middle walk space. Right on the aisle. There's one in an aisle seat.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
That is so wild.
Yeah, and I only caught that on my second going.
Whoa.
On my second, yeah. You see, you don't notice because it's all it's so good looking. You know, you just kind of get lost in looking how great it is. But yeah, I was paying attention and I saw what looked like two mannequins there, and I'm like, man, what kind of decision? Why did they decide to do that? Like. Because they could have just gotten, one of the extras to sit there and then put the mannequin in a more out of place way.
Yeah.
Or just not have that seat filled and, or have an empty seat in a farther out of the way place. But no, there's a mannequin in an aisle.
It must be like an actual creative decision then, probably.
Yeah. I mean,
that's really interesting.
I mean, maybe it's something like, if there was, because, let's face it, on day of shoot, things can get wild and crazy. So it could be, we need something, let's put a mannequin.
Yeah.
But if there was something pretentious, it could be like how Cynthia feels like she's just a mannequin, dressing up for Evelyn.
Yeah.
Because that happens a lot in this movie.
Yeah.
So we you say it might be the 1910s. I'm not sure what time period it is.
Thinking about it, well, I don't know. I feel like we have to do research and figure out when this study.
Well, I don't think it matters.
Yeah, true.
It doesn't really matter. But it's something that I thought was a really great creative choice to really class it up and make it look, make the movie feel like it's set in another time, in another place, but it could still be our own modern day. Because, in the modern day, kink has gotten to be, pretty mainstream by now. What with, 50 Shades of Grey going on, in the cultural event that was, porn, internet porn has a lot to do with that too.
Yeah.
So yeah, it could be modern day, or especially if the person right down the street is they find out it's kinky too. So it can be modern day as well.
Could be. I'm gonna revise my guess and just say pre-World War II.
Okay. I have no idea, but it was just something I noticed, and it doesn't really bother me. So apparently, like maybe every spring and summer, these women have what they call is the Institute, and they open it up and they research and study and give lectures and write papers that they share with each other on butterflies. It's these women who are independently wealthy. They're lesbians, they're into kink, and they study butterflies. And they get together. And that's the movie.
It is.
The first shot, let's see. The first shot is a woman kneeling by a river, who's Evelyn, and she bikes around and goes about her day, and she studies butterfly things. And then she bikes to a woman's home, and she rings the door and waits. And then that's when we get introduced to Cynthia.
Mm-hmm.
And Cynthia tells her to come in and kind of bosses her around.
She says, "You're late, first of all."
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And, treats her, very coldly and mildly abusive. You're late starting the study, but don't take all day this time. That's what she tells her.
Mm-hmm.
And then, one of the shots is of Evelyn scrubbing the floor, cleaning the floor. Mm-hmm. And then Cynthia eats a chocolate, and she takes her wrapper and she tosses it right in front of Cynthia for her to, in front of Evelyn for her to pick up. And then she says, and then as Evelyn, finishes up and she starts to leave, and Cynthia tells her, she goes, "Where are you going?" She goes, "Well, I'm going home. There's nothing left for me to do." Cynthia says, "There's plenty for you to do. You can start by rubbing my feet," which is not typical service done by maids.
No.
So that's when you kind of figure out there's something more going on in this movie.
Yeah.
And so I have written down here that the next shot is of Cynthia undressing in her room, and Evelyn is looking through the peephole.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then things are really taking a turn, where in that scene Cynthia has told Evelyn to wash her panties. Not to use the machine, though, but to wash them by hand. And when Evelyn gets done, Cynthia goes and checks, and she sees one pair of panties are not washed yet. And so she says, come here, you need to be punished. So Cynthia takes Evelyn into the bathroom. And then the door closes and everything else we hear. Dan, what do we hear?
Thanks for passing it off to me. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Anytime.
We hear some form of water liquid.
well, first, Cynthia tells Evelyn to lie down.
Yeah.
Then we hear Cynthia saying, "Open your mouth," and then we hear the water. Now, when I first watched this, I was like, "Huh." Maybe what Cynthia doing is has those water nozzles from the kitchen sink. Maybe she's just spraying with one of those.
The first time this happened in the movie, I was like, oh my gosh, because I hadn't picked. I was having doubts that this was like non-consensual or whatever, or like actual abuse. And then. But I was like, is she waterboarding her? With like the panties that she didn't wash right? And then,
So when did you realize?
I realized after I saw Evelyn taking about, drinking about...
Oh, Cynthia, yeah.
Oh, sorry, Cynthia drinking about 3 gallons of water a day.
Yeah, that's what I noticed too.
And the gulps being emphasized heavily.
Yeah, that's what I noticed too. I'm like, wow, she's drinking a glass of water. Wow, she's drinking another glass of water. Wow, that's a lot of water she's drinking. and then later in the movie, they redo the scene again. And so Cynthia pulls Evelyn into the bathroom, lie down, open your mouth, and then we don't hear anything. And Evelyn's like, why don't you try turning on the tap?
Oh gosh.
But that's kind of what this movie is about. I feel this movie is about kinky fantasies, but how reality ensues on those fantasies.
Like encroaches on and ruins them in a way.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Or how it's not sustainable.
Yeah,
for whatever reason. Yeah.
When we first started the movie and I saw it was written directed by a dude, I was like, okay.
How do you feel about that? How do you feel about that, by the way?
I have mixed feelings, but I think overall it was done well, and it wasn't super. It wasn't as much as sexual as the themes were. I don't think it was exploitative. I don't think it was. Yeah, I don't think it was exploitative. I think that was the story, and that's just what the story was. It's always a little weird imagining like a guy directing it all, and like, yeah, I would be interested to see what this movie would have looked like if it were written and directed by a woman. But I don't think it was ruined by masculinity.
Right. And, just to be clear, there's no men in this movie. It's all women.
No.
And it's a very small cast of speaking parts. But all the main characters, all the supporting characters, and all the extras, it's all women in this movie. And, I kind of feel the same way. I definitely feel the same way. I don't think this movie is about exploitation. Probably, and I think one of the things that helps with that is that Evelyn, who's a submissive, she really wants to be exploited, basically. That's her fantasy. But Cynthia, who's the dominant, she's very uncomfortable in exploiting Evelyn in those ways on a constant basis.
Yeah.
And I also feel that that's the character conflict that's happening throughout this movie.
Yeah.
Basically, Evelyn, she wants 24/7 power exchange where she's just, controlled all the time and on a constant basis. And Cynthia isn't.
In a way.
Yes, in a way. And that's another part.
That's the interesting part about this movie.
Yeah, because she only wants to be dominated in certain specific, very specific ways.
Yeah. In the ways that she wants.
Yeah, in the ways that she wants. Which is valid for a submissive. But then what happens is Cynthia gets frustrated by that because she's not used to it. And, those aren't her kinks is what it is.
Yeah.
So which brings up the question, well, why is Cynthia, doing these things that she's not into to satisfy Evelyn?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the reason is because Cynthia is getting older and, she feels, I think she's, what's the word? When you don't have any confidence.
Like you feel like your self-worth is lowered or you're losing it?
Yeah. What's the word? Fuck it. I think Cynthia is losing confidence in her ability to keep somebody, to love.
Yeah.
And so she finds Evelyn. She knows that she can keep Evelyn around and love her if she does these things, even though she's not into them. And that's another source of conflict, too, is when she gets frustrated by having to do these things that she's not really into in order to keep Evelyn, with her in a relationship.
Yeah.
So, this movie is really a character relationship drama.
Oh, absolutely. 1,000,000,000%. That's why it is a great pick. Yeah. And that's, again, why I don't think it was exploitative is because it's about characters. And the focus is not on how arousing the stuff is.
Well, it's also, the person, the character wants to be exploited. And then the person who would exploit her has problems with that. So that helps it too. That's what I was getting at too.
Yeah, but I think it's also, that's not the emphasis of the film. The emphasis of the film is on what these characters are feeling.
Yeah. And the relationship and how they navigate all of that. Yeah. It's not titillating or, as you said, meant to be arousing. Kink is just the structure or the
plot in a way.
The artifice. It's like the artifice that the director and the writer use to explore the relationship of power dynamics or power dynamics in a relationship.
That's a great word for this movie. Yeah, is artifice.
Yeah.
Because it's artifice and it's performance, and it's so interesting. I wish I could just talk about it better, but I don't feel like I don't have the vocabulary or something. Mm-hmm. It's just let's start talking about like specific parts.
Okay. Well, before we get to that, you mentioned the artifice and the performance.
Yeah.
And this movie, it's performative on two levels. Because on one level we get the actors playing the characters, but then those characters run through their kink scenes over and over and over again in the same ways. So that's performative as well.
Yeah, it's the exact same lines too for a lot of it.
Yeah, and that and that makes me think of like there's two kinky people in the world. Okay. You have people who are kinky, and what they'll do is they'll get into one kink and then they'll burn themselves out on it. So then they have to go to another kink just to feel something. And so that takes them down a rabbit hole of like ever more extreme and weirder kinks. Like just listening to somebody's heartbeat while they have an orgasm. That's one that I've seen on Reddit.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Like not moans or anything like that. It's just like boom, 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 boom.
Interesting.
Yes. So there's that. And then you have people who are like, who have very one specific kink or set of kinks, and that's all they want, and that's what they enjoy, and they enjoy it all the time, and they never get tired of it. And that's what Evelyn is, obviously.
Yeah.
Because like even though she's a submissive, she's the one who kind of propels the kinks, because what she'll do is she'll write out cards, handwritten cards, which are like if you're into role-playing games, there's in character and then out of character, OC. So she writes these OC cards to Cynthia, explaining to her, what it is that she wants from a scene, which is like really funny. And it's part of that reality ensuing. Because, she, Evelyn writes her that one card and she's like, but make me wait for it.
Yes.
But it has to be within 24 hours, but don't do it in the first hour, but don't do it in the last hour either.
Yeah.
And so there's like, 22 hours.
Yes.
With that amount of enthusiasm.
Yes. She looks so annoyed.
Yeah. Which is
also so passive aggressive.
Yeah. But that's also like another part of the power dynamic, because supposedly Cynthia, who's the dominant, is supposed to have the power.
Yeah.
But and Evelyn is a submissive, and so she gets treated these ways. But Cynthia is just doing what Evelyn wants.
Exactly.
So in a lot of ways, Evelyn has the power.
Yeah, that's what I was noticing right off the bat. It was just so interesting. The way they framed it too was so brilliant, because you have that first scene and you're like, oh my gosh, Evelyn is being completely taken advantage of here, and then you restart the scene, and it's from Cynthia's perspective.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my gosh, Cynthia's like a prisoner almost. A love prisoner.
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the movie, so throughout the movie, part of their role playing is that Cynthia wears these very nice lingerie and corsets and stockings.
Yeah.
And then but in a different room, and then Evelyn looks through the peephole and watches her as she kind of poses herself and like dresses up and then undresses. So that's what we see first. And then later on we see Cynthia struggling to put on a corset and tie the binders behind her. She struggles to do that. And then she rips up the stockings because she has trouble putting them on.
Well, I thought she got frustrated.
Yeah. She was getting frustrated, and that's why she that's another reason why she ripped them off.
Yeah.
Because she was getting frustrated by all this.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. The first time I watched it, I noticed, but it was at the ending. When they kind of made up, and Cynthia does that again. In her room, there's a rug. And there are tape marks.
Yes.
But they're there earlier. Did you catch them earlier or at the end?
I didn't catch them earlier. I caught them at the end.
Yeah. That's one of the things I love about this movie, is that even though you see things, like you're so enraptured by it that you miss those little things. But yeah, I saw it at the end too, where
it's like an L. It's like a taped L.
Yeah, it's a taped L, and it shows where Evelyn can see her from the peephole.
Yeah.
So Cynthia knows to stay between those lines. And yeah, it's like she's a fucking prisoner. That's the first thing. That's what I thought by the end of the movie. Is like, yeah, Cynthia is a prisoner of Evelyn because she loves her, but she's also trapped by her and trying to keep her. Yeah. So,
well, I was trying to figure that out in the end, because it's a cool arc, because we start off with there's a definite, Evelyn definitely has power over Cynthia, and that she's telling her what to do. She's ordering her.
It's the other way. Cynthia is the dominant woman.
I know.
Oh, okay.
But Evelyn is giving her the cards.
Oh, yeah.
Evelyn is giving her the cards and telling her everything she needs to do in order for her to be satisfied. And Cynthia, we can see throughout the movie, is frustrated by almost everything. She feels like she can't be herself. She feels like she has to perform all the time. She's not allowed to wear these baggy PJs that she feels comfortable in.
Yeah.
She has to wear the lingerie that Evelyn wants to see her in.
Yeah.
And we go throughout. So then the turning point, I think, is whenever Evelyn sort of cheats by.
Yeah. Well, what happens? Well, it's kind of like a great buildup, though.
Yeah.
But like another part when we see the frustration is, they're in bed. Cynthia's still asleep, but Evelyn has woken up.
Yeah.
So what does Evelyn do?
Well, also, Cynthia's still asleep and snoring.
And snoring, yeah.
And snoring. And Evelyn snaps her fingers right in front of her face to wake her up. And then, like, immediately basically gives her a card for her to do something for. I forget what the card was that time.
Did she give her a card? No.
Okay, what was it? I forget.
I thought that what happens is Evelyn tells her, tell me something. And then Cynthia's like, I have so much to tell you. I love you, and, all of these romantic things. And then Evelyn stops her and says, no, tell me about the other things. And Cynthia goes on, you're horrible. You're terrible. Basically insulting her and, trying to humiliate her while Evelyn is masturbating.
Yeah. So she wakes her up so she can masturbate. That's what I was kind of.
Yeah. And then Evelyn, and then Cynthia keeps going and, trying to tell her, you're a bad girl. And if you don't do these things right, you're going to be punished. And then, Cynthia is like, I don't know what else to say. And then Cynthia's like, and then Evelyn is like, go back to the beginning. So Cynthia just repeats herself.
Yeah.
And it's like, improvise.
Yeah.
And Cynthia, and it looks like at first, at the beginning, Cynthia put her hands, down under the covers, but it's obvious. She just wants to get this over with, and she's not into it, and she's just doing it for Evelyn.
In that moment, especially, I think, the improvised moment, you just, because also, it's a great shot, too, because Evelyn has, like, her eyes closed, and she's, like,
really into it.
And Cynthia, eyes wide open, looking at the ceiling.
Yeah.
You can see her trying to think of her lines. And in that moment, whenever Evelyn says improvise, there's like, you just see her go like frozen.
Yeah.
With just, she checks out in that moment. She's angry and she feels that imprisonment and that control, I think, in that moment, especially. Yeah.
Yeah, and then
try to have more conviction in your voice next time.
Yeah, that's what she says after.
Yes.
That's what I was looking
Sorry.
for.
Yeah,
My
so
notes.
Evelyn finishes or whatever.
Yeah.
And Cynthia is like, okay, yeah, like we succeeded. Like you can see her like in her the way she's portraying her face, whatever you want to and then you can just see, I was like, oh, wait for it. Because you could just see Evelyn. I don't know if it was a vocal thing or what, but there was like a next time. It's like it was. I was waiting for but actually, and that was try to have more conviction in your voice next time. And it was just like a brutal blow.
Yeah,
my gosh,
for sure.
Oh man. Yeah, this movie is very much about power and control.
Do you want to talk about the other brutal blow in this movie? Well, I mean, there's a couple back and forth. But the next one that Evelyn does for Cynthia, when they discuss the bed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you talk about it.
So Evelyn's birthday is coming up. It's in 2 weeks.
Oh yeah.
And so we see the furniture maker come in and take measurements of the bed they already have and measurements of Evelyn. And holy smokes, the way that sequences, it's slow and there's harpsichord music playing. And and the furniture maker is like this young woman, and she has this, kind of curly blonde hair, wearing, oh my God, just fantastically dressed. All
immaculately dressed.
Yeah, as they all are, as everybody else is in this movie at all time. It's shot so slow, and it looks like, oh, is there a thing going on between Evelyn and this other woman like that? It's filmed very erotically.
Yeah.
Or just very erotically.
Yeah.
And then next we see Cynthia making a set of tea. And so what they're discussing is the other woman is a furniture maker, and they want to commission her to make a bed that has a cabinet underneath that Evelyn can sleep in. So Evelyn sleeps in the compartment underneath the main bed, and then Cynthia sleeps on top of that. And so there are two types. There's ones that's a drawer where you have to pull in and push in, or one that has a spring that lifts the top bed up, so the submissive can go in the bottom part, and then you close the top part, and then So you find out that that's what Evelyn wants for her birthday, and her birthday's in 2 weeks. But the furniture maker can't do it in 2 weeks. It has to be 8 weeks. And so, they're like, well, what if we paid you more? And it's like, well, the furniture maker's like, well, I have other customers. There's a line for this. And someone down the street just got one. And that's kind of how you feel that, this is a whole, kind of shadow world in this universe. And so Evelyn, gets really disappointed because she's like, well, no, it's okay. There'll be other birthdays. And the furniture maker's like, well, what if I might have something else for you. How does a human toilet sound? And Evelyn's like, oh yeah, I'm very interested in that. And Cynthia's like, you know what? I have to go. And Evelyn's like, what? Yeah, well, I told you, I have to go. So Cynthia's like, don't order anything until we talk about it. And then there's the shot of Cynthia walking out, and she looks through the window, and she sees Evelyn. The furniture maker is like explaining something about the human toilet to Evelyn, and Cynthia's just looking at her, and then the shot ends by her putting her hood over her head and then walking off.
Evelyn is looking at
Cynthia is looking at Evelyn.
Evelyn is looking at the furniture maker. And she is not looking at what the furniture maker is describing with her hands. She's looking at
that's true,
the furniture maker, like like interested in her. Sorry.
That's true. So like that's when that's we learn what Cynthia's real limits are. It's like, what, not gonna go there. And we find that out because later so what happens is Evelyn gets the idea, well, they can't get the bed. Well, she finds a trunk that's been put away, an old trunk that gets away. So she takes everything out and cleans it up, and she and Cynthia move it into their bedroom where Cynthia hurts her back. So there's a lot from that, but we'll get back to that, because what happens is, since they don't have the bed, Evelyn has Cynthia put her into the trunk while they sleep, while Cynthia sleeps. And not only that, but Evelyn is tied up. She has her wrist tied. And it's so funny because what happens at some point in the movie is Evelyn speaks her safe word, which is apparently like a species of butterfly. But Cynthia is asleep, and eventually she wakes up and lets Evelyn out. And Cynthia's like, are you okay? What's wrong? And she's like, yeah, I'm fine. There's just a mosquito in there.
It's like, that's such an amazing part. It's like,
reality ensues.
Yes. You're not as cool as you think you are. You're not as hardcore as you think you are.
Well, that's another point for Evelyn's birthday. That happens again in Evelyn's birthday, but we'll get there. And then what happens is Evelyn, scratches, and she goes, maybe you could put me back in, but with my wrist untied. And Cynthia's like, I told you you'd have more fun if you just stayed in bed with me. And then Evelyn says, maybe you can keep me in there with my wrist untied. So that also shows you like their priorities, where Evelyn's priority is this kink stuff, whereas Cynthia's priority is, more that loving, romantic, more conventional type of dynamic, most people prefer.
Yeah.
So.
More affectionate, I would say.
Yeah, affectionate for sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to get back into the arc real quick.
Okay.
Which is, again, that they start off, Evelyn is very much giving the orders with the cards.
Mm-hmm.
And it is the appearance that Cynthia is the one dominating in the relationship. And then it's like a seed planted whenever we see Evelyn looking at the boots of the professor,
mm-hmm.
or the person who's the speaker, and then
Dr. Scholler.
Mm-hmm. And then all those things happen with the furniture maker, and the mosquito bite, and you'll notice in that scene with the mosquito bite too, she doesn't, like, that's when I think we first hear Cynthia order her, mm-hmm. in a way, in a truly non-scripted way.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's enough. Come to bed, basically.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And she does. Evelyn goes to the bed. But anyway, so then that starts the ball rolling. It feels like, and one day Cynthia comes home to Evelyn, and she confronts Evelyn about the neighbor having seen. Oh, go ahead.
Well, what happens is because Cynthia hurt her back, mm-hmm. She doesn't feel like dressing up for Evelyn all the time. So mm-hmm. she wears these very comfy clothes, and like just pajama pants and a long sleeve pajama top. And it's like, they don't look bad at all. They look very, very comfy, just what you walk around in. And the two wind up complaining to each other. Because they're studying together. They're studying butterflies together while they're listening to the butterfly chirps. Mm-hmm. I forget how it started. But Cynthia is sitting there, and she's like rubbing her back. And I think everyone's like, well, don't you need to go to the doctor or something? And then Cynthia's like, well, you could volunteer to rub my back, because she's a submissive, but then mm-hmm. Evelyn's like, well, the way you're dressed, wearing her comfy clothes, that hardly inspires me to want to.
Yeah.
So that's crazy when you start getting the friction. And then Cynthia complains, well, half of the stuff you bought me, I can't put on. Mm-hmm. I need an instruction manual to put on. And then Evelyn complains that about the recording is giving her a headache. And Cynthia doesn't fucking move. Yeah. And everyone's like, are you going to turn it off? And Cynthia's like, are you going to ask me to?
Yes.
And then Evelyn just stands up and walks to a different room.
That was a great line, too, because in relationships of all types, there are those things that people are passive aggressive about. I mean, in most relationships. Yeah. Some people aren't passive aggressive at all. Mm-hmm. But it's like you get into those parts where you're like, are you going to hint about something, or are you going to ask me and be, sort of mature about it in a way, and communicate? That's what it is. I think it's a communication breakdown, in a way. They haven't been honest with each other.
Yeah.
And then in the middle of it, it catches up with them.
Yeah.
And they're communicating not through, conventional, hey, let's sit down, let's talk about this. Mm-hmm. Instead, it's like, here's a, like, here's something unpleasant that you wouldn't want to do. I'm going to make you do it because this is what you said you wanted, but it's not what you actually want.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, I feel like I'm getting off track, but that's what's interesting as well, is watching them try to communicate through hurtful ways.
Yeah.
In a way. But why I brought it up was I just thought that was a great line. Are you going to ask me to turn it off? And no, she's not.
That reminds me of something my grandfather used to do. So, and like, this was when I was like, 13 or whatever. No, it's not going to get bad. Trust me.
I wasn't thinking it was, but
well, for the listeners who are getting anxious, But anyway, I would work on the sugarcane farm, and I couldn't drive myself, so my grandfather would drive me, and so he would pick pick me up and take me back home. Well, all the farms have gates. So once you get past the gate, you got to get out of the truck, close the gate and lock it. And so what would happen is, and I was working in it, and so I'm just tired by the end of the day. So my grandfather, he would pick me up. He'd pull the truck past the gate, just past the gate, and then he would put the truck in park, open the door, get out, and this is like a 70, 80-year-old man. Close the gate, lock it, come in, and look at me. Give me a dirty look that I didn't just get out and do it myself. And I'm like, well, you didn't ask me to. And he's like, well, I shouldn't have to ask you. And I'm like, well, why shouldn't you have to ask me? He's one of those people who expects people to do whatever he wants, without being told to. And I'm like, you're not living in reality. Yeah. If it's easier for you to, put the truck in park, open the door, get out, close the gate yourself, lock it, come in and give me a dirty look. If that's easier to do than to just say, go close the gate, well, that's on you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's just what that reminded me.
No, that's great. That's great. And it's so much more work to be so petty.
Yeah.
So much more work to be petty.
That's a great way of putting it.
Yeah. But it is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
To not to have to communicate, to be vulnerable. Yeah. And they are so vulnerable physically. Yeah. But they aren't vulnerable emotionally to each other.
Yeah.
And yeah, because they're not. It doesn't feel like a real relationship for most of the movie.
Yeah.
And then we get into that. Okay, so then to get back to the arc real quick, basically...
well, next the cheating happens. Is
right.
that what you want to get to?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the cheating, Cynthia comes home and she accuses Evelyn of cheating, polishing someone else's boots. And
Dr. Schuller's
boots. And then doing more, because more than just polishing the boots. And then Evelyn is like, I didn't do it. And is like, well, yeah, I did.
Well, what it is Cynthia. Oh, okay, so earlier in the movie, there's a scene where Evelyn is polishing Cynthia's boots. Yeah. And then we see Cynthia, just kind of sitting there, doing nothing, and then waiting for a little while. And then after a few, drinking a cup of water, and then she gets up, opens the door, and she says, don't be all day about, shining those boots or something to that effect. And so Cynthia, walks back in, and then Evelyn, goes back to polishing thing. And then after a while, she just stops. And then, she looks back through the, into the window to see if Cynthia is doing anything. And Cynthia's just sitting there, reading her thing. And so then Evelyn has to get up and tap on the glass to get Cynthia's attention, which startles her. And then Cynthia, opens the door and she's like, what are you doing? Why'd you stop? Come here, let me punish you.
It's so stupid. It's so funny. It's so goofy. Oh my gosh.
So that's where we learn. That's the setup. Okay, that's the setup for what happens, in the later part. We know that polishing boots means something. Yeah. In this relationship. Yeah. And so what happens is Cynthia's back is hurting and Evelyn is rubbing her back. And Cynthia's like, the neighbor mentioned that you were polishing somebody else's boots. And she was like, no, I wasn't. She's a dirty liar. I never did that. And Cynthia's like, no, don't lie to me. Don't lie to me. I know you did it. And then Evelyn was like, well, yeah, I polished her boots, but that didn't mean anything. It just meant I was polishing her boots. And then Cynthia was like, well, if it didn't mean anything, then why'd you lie about it?
Yeah. And she's like, I lied about it because I knew you were going to make a big deal about it.
Yeah, and she said, well, she goes, we didn't touch, we didn't kiss, we didn't do anything like that. And Cynthia was like, well, you might as well have. You should have gone all the way if you're going to go that far. And then Evelyn's like, well, I was frustrated. No, Cynthia asked, well, did she do anything else? Did she punish you? And Evelyn was like, no, she told me off a little.
It's just so freaking kids on the playground. Like,
yeah, but
you talked to that other girl, and you took a worm from that other girl, and
yeah, but in this relationship, those things mean things. They mean more than what they simply are. Is the things, they're symbols.
Yeah, but it's just all like stupid rich white people shit. It's so annoying. Oh,
Okay.
it's like. Yeah, I'm sorry.
So yeah,
it's lovely. It's great. It's character, dynamics. It's power struggles. It's wonderful. It's just sometimes I would just check out and be like, "This is ridiculous."
Yeah,
and I think you're supposed to, but
some things in a relationship can be kind of petty. Because the little things mean something.
Definitely.
For the good and for the bad.
Yeah.
It's like that thing where couples who watch a streaming show together, and that question of whether or not to watch an episode without your partner, is that cheating or not?
I remember one time my best friend wasn't allowed to watch. It was Zombieland. So Zombieland was an R-rated movie, and it was my first R-rated movie that I ever watched, and I was like, oh my gosh, you have to watch this movie. But they weren't allowed to. And so I was like, well, wait until you watch it with me. Because we'll finally be able to watch it together whenever you're allowed to or whatever. And then one day, finally, that friend was over for an overnighter, and they got permission from their parent to watch this movie. And they never thought they'd get permission. And so we're watching the movie, and my friend is like quoting the movie while watching it. I'm like, you dirty son of a bitch bastard. You watched this movie already, haven't you? And they were like, yes. I was so upset. And I still remember to this day. And I still get upset thinking about it. But it's so stupid. It's just hilarious. It's just funny.
Yeah, because it means something to you in your relationship with that person.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yes, it's stupid, but it's relatable and understandable at the same time.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I like that, yeah, I just love that entire exchange. And, that's when their relationship, kind of starts to crumble.
Absolutely. And that's when we watch Cynthia be like, okay, you want a dominant person? I'll be dominant.
Yeah. The birthday cake scene.
Yeah.
So it's finally Evelyn's birthday. And then, Cynthia brings Evelyn into the kitchen. And she's like, here's your birthday gift. I hope you like it as much as I do. And Evelyn just sees all these ingredients laid out for her on the table. And she's like, what is this? Is this a joke? She actually asks, is this a joke? And Cynthia says, no, it's not a joke. I want you to bake a cake for your birthday. And while you do that, I'm going to go get into some clothes.
Yeah.
And so Evelyn's like, well, okay. And so we see Evelyn, has baked a cake. That's a great looking cake, by the way.
Yeah.
It's like a chocolate cake with a little bit of white frosting, and I think like cherries on the frosting. Mm-hmm. Oh my God.
Yeah, intricately designed and all.
Yeah, and it's a big cake. Like it's not a small thing, it's a big one. Yeah. Like, holy smokes. Mm-hmm. That's what she can bake. Oh my God. I can never make that. And we don't see any baking, so it kind of comes out of nowhere. I'm just amazed. You know what I mean? But it fits this universe where everything is like, absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
So we see her standing in the room, and it's kind of dark. And there's like a single candle that's lit on the cake. And then Evelyn's just standing there waiting, and then Cynthia comes in, mm-hmm. and she's dressed in her comfy bedclothes this time.
Yeah.
Which really surprises Evelyn. And then Cynthia sits down by the table, tells Evelyn to bring the cake and set it down. And she does so. And then she tells Evelyn to lay down so she can rest her feet on Evelyn's face. And then she blows out Evelyn's candle. Mm-hmm. And then starts eating it. And then, Evelyn wants to stop the scene.
Yeah.
She, this isn't what she expected. Mm-hmm. She's not having fun. This is not how she wants to be dominated. And she says a safe word. Mm-hmm. And Cynthia basically ignores her, saying, oh, if only we could do that, whenever we want it. or something to that effect. And so she just keeps eating the chocolate cake, and Evelyn just stays there, with Cynthia's feet on top of her face. And then, that's when you see the tears coming from Evelyn.
Yeah, because Evelyn tries to get up, and Cynthia pushes her back down with her feet.
Yeah.
And then Evelyn's face is pushed toward the camera a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe to get out from under the foot or whatever. And then we see the tears.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just that you want this, I'll give it to you, but you don't actually want it.
Yeah.
In any way that isn't your way.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know where I heard it from, but there's certain ways that you have to deal with submissives, that don't go too far. It's like, you can tell a submissive, oh yeah, you're a dirty slut and all this other stuff. But you can't say other things like, the dress on that girl, I think it looks better on her than on you. You can't say that.
It reminds me of Succession. There's like a part where they're like trying to talk dirty or whatever, and then one of them just says, "I don't love you." It's
like, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are ways that there are things you can go too far if you get outside of the wheelhouse of the submissive. And that's what Cynthia kind of does. And, I think she does that as a show of frustration to Evelyn.
Yeah.
It
is a little disturbing. And
it's not cool because, she uses a safe word, and so that means stop. When somebody uses a safe word, stop.
Yeah.
That's how, this stuff stays safe, for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And for Cynthia to not abide by that, that's really, really, really not cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then I think she says the safe word like a bunch of times to, anyway, Cynthia does, to kind of rub it in her face.
Yeah. Well, she says, if only we could, I think it's
okay.
pastrami.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. And she says, if only we could say that whenever we wanted to.
Yeah.
So. And then, just ignores her and keeps her. Yeah. Later on, there's like that weird sequence where Evelyn whispers it, but that happens during like a dream sequence or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I think it's pretty close to after that. That sequence is because because I was thinking at the start of this movie, I was like, oh snap, Cynthia's gonna murder her.
Really?
I was thinking it was gonna be like a murder movie. Like I was thinking she's not happy, she is imprisoned, and she's gonna murder her to escape this sort of emotional prison.
Well, there's that dream sequence.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is, oh my God, that's downright David Lynchian.
Absolutely, 1,000,000,000%.
Where
it's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's gorgeous, but it's also disturbing, and it also uses eerie music. Like, there's a lot of eerie music in this movie. And oh my God, so what happens is it's late at night, and Cynthia is wearing just black lingerie, including black stockings, and she's just sitting there, and Evelyn comes in, and holy smoke, she looks terrible. She's wearing just like a white nightgown, I think. And her hair is a mess. It's all tousled. And she has like black eye makeup, but it looks ruined. And, she looks absolutely terrible. And then there's a shot, and then like it goes back and forth between Evelyn and Cynthia. And then there's a full head-on shot of Cynthia, and there's a very, very, very slow dolly in as the camera focuses in on her crotch, which is all black. So as the camera gets in, it turns her crotch into a dark void.
Yes,
where I think like a red moth flies through, or
it cuts to black. You go all the way into the deep crevasse, and then it cuts to black basically in that, because it zooms into darkness, complete darkness.
Yeah.
And then we see a moth, and then
it goes through some kind of weird sequence, right? And then as that sequence ends, it's all dark again, and the camera dollies back out, and we see again that it's Cynthia's crotch, and then we cut to the angle.
Well, first I think we get in what we go.
There's that sequence of Cynthia opening the trunk.
Yeah, we go into the crotch, and it's almost like the bad dream.
Okay.
So Cynthia opens the trunk, and it's a skeleton inside.
Yeah.
With its arms tied, like Evelyn had her arms tied, I think. Mm-hmm. And then we cut back to, I think it's Evelyn in like a bathroom with moths all around her, and
well, no. Once Cynthia sees the skeleton, then she goes out looking outside in the night for Evelyn.
Yeah.
And then so she goes outside, and then she sees the trunk. And the trunk opens, but it's not that Evelyn's in there. Cynthia's putting Evelyn inside the trunk, and that's when we get the David Lynchian voiceover, like in Dune, saying the two of them saying, how long do I have to be in here for? As long as I want. And so Evelyn goes into the trunk. Cynthia's like helping her, but Cynthia keeps going down in the trunk. So it's almost like Evelyn is pulling her. It's almost like Evelyn is pulling her into the trunk, and Cynthia's wearing this black cape, basically.
Yeah.
And so the cape covers up the lens, and so that's how it goes back to black. And then from that darkness, that's again when we get the dolly out.
Yes.
Of Cynthia's crotch again. And then the camera cuts to the same angle where we saw Evelyn, but we see Evelyn has turned her back to us and is walking away. So yeah.
Crazy cool sequence. I feel like there was like so much there that I missed, but it was like you could write an essay about it, I'm sure.
Well, I mean, I didn't get that the first time, but the second time it was like, did Evelyn go down on Cynthia and but like they had a really bad time? Like, is that what happened?
I think it's just a dream that Evelyn is having about losing control in a way.
Oh yeah, because after that, as Evelyn is walking away from Cynthia and Cynthia is behind her, that's when we get the shot of her walking like down the hall, and there's all these butterflies around her, like just flapping. And the hallway is full of them, and but Evelyn continues to walk forward, and as she walks, the screen, the frame becomes more and more covered with butterflies until it's just the butterflies. And then, that's when the dream sequence ends, I think.
Yeah. So that was the dream sequence. And I thought that was such a cool scene. I think it's moths, too, that are swarming around the camera.
Okay.
But it's like this, it's like a Lynchian scene.
Yeah.
But what it also reminded me of, if I could say one thing, is there's this guy, Stan Brakhage, I think.
Okay.
And he was in the 70s. He would make home movies, experimental home movies that were where he would like tape butterfly wings and things like that to the actual celluloid. Oh. And so you would, like leaves, and it was just very experimental, very like home. It was like, what bedroom pop is for music?
No.
Okay. Well, it's musicians making.
It sounds like what he did was, I don't know what's going to happen if I do that, but let's see what happens when I do that.
Yeah. And it's like also this sort of experimentation in surrealism and art. It's just like making art, pure art out of movies. There's no narrative at all.
Okay.
But that's what that reminded me of when we have those flashing shots of moths or butterflies and all. I thought that was really cool and just completely, takes you in. And yeah, it takes you out of the world in a way and into this moment, which Absolutely. I really love. Yeah.
So yeah. So then in the narrative, the Institute is getting ready to shut down for the winter.
Yes.
And we see that, you know, they're not speaking. You know, it's a little scene, but it says so much because Evelyn is in her room and she's studying. And then Cynthia comes in, grabs some books out of a little bookcase, and walks out and doesn't say anything to her. And Evelyn, you know, is obviously upset by that. By the way, in that scene, the bookcase, the front is like it's a cabinet that opens up, and the front is glass. So we see Cynthia's and Evelyn's reflection in that glass, and there's a lot of reflecting shots.
There's a ton of reflecting shots. Yeah.
But also, what's really cool is some of the, like, you know, through window panes and so forth, but like they're old window panes, so there's a distortion. And this movie also uses a lot of distortion in its cinematography, especially in the sex scenes, basically. You know, one of the reasons, you know, why I can't really, you know, call it a titillating movie is because during those sex scenes, like, there's always some kind of distortion, like there's kind of like a kaleidoscopic effect that distorts the image, so you don't see exactly what's going on, but you know what's going on. And so I think that also helped to make the movie not seem, you know, prurient, you know, not be porny. So that really helped it out too. And also he uses those effects, you know, when he wants to do those, you know, get into the surrealism of the movie. Just to talk about, you know, the cinematography for a bit.
No, it's wonderful. You get these like double exposure type things. Double overlay. And there's one scene in particular I thought was really cool where it's like a sex scene, but it's where Cynthia is like breathing really deeply. You can see like her chest rising, and then, you know, like it's like a double exposure with like a candle, like 3 candles like in her chest, and it looks so cool. It's like there's like a flame lit in her chest. It's just like so, it's so how do you say it? It's so precise. It's so, you know, it's like they're using the language of film accurately, accurately. I don't know, skillfully. It's so skillful. That's what I want to say. Yes.
Okay, there you go. Yeah.
Oh, we got there eventually.
Yeah, we did. So there's that. And so Evelyn is like out, you know, doing her butterfly studies, you know, in the fields, and you know, Cynthia's watching her. So they're not together. And then the institute has closed up, and then they're in the middle of that scene where Evelyn, you know, has washed Cynthia's panties, you know, says, you know, I'm done. Cynthia's like, well, you know, let me go check. You know, she finds one on the pile. And then that's when Cynthia has her breakdown in front of Evelyn.
Yes.
Yeah, you want to talk about that?
Sure. So, yeah, Cynthia comes back in with the panties, and you can just see she's going slower than she usually does, because we've seen this scene played out like 3 or 4 times already in this movie. And so this is the slowest she's doing it. You can just tell there's something wrong.
Well, they're both not into it. Like, they're both really not into it, and you can tell.
Yeah. But I think, at least my read on it was Cynthia's more breaking down.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. And so she's carrying on with the bit, and she comes up and she's like, what is this? And she's forgetting her lines, but she still continues on. She carries on, but she's cracking up. And Evelyn is just there watching her, just almost with her in her agony in a way. And I forget how it breaks down, but she's like, basically, I can't.
I think Cynthia says something like, you know, I hope you're not resent me, you know. Basically, Cynthia is hoping that Evelyn isn't hating her. Because, you know, they haven't spoken, you know, they're not close anymore. There's a rift between them, and it hasn't healed yet, and that upsets Cynthia. And, you know, Cynthia's like, that's what I feel is happening in that moment. Cynthia's like, please don't hate me. I love you.
Yeah.
But then Evelyn responds. She's like, no, I love you. I love you. She says, all this is a luxury, but I love you. And then Evelyn holds her. And then Evelyn's like, you don't believe me, do you? How can I show you that I really love you? So Evelyn finally understands the problem that Cynthia has had all this time, which is Cynthia genuinely loves Evelyn, but Evelyn is also using Cynthia to indulge in her kinks. So I think that makes Cynthia doubt whether Evelyn loves her honestly and genuinely, or if Evelyn is using Cynthia just to get her kinks fulfilled, which wouldn't be genuine. And so Evelyn's like, no, I really do love you. This is luxury. We don't need this because I love you. And so that's when we get the makeup montage. Yeah. Where they're just two, British lesbians, in a field of grass, all dressed up, having a picnic.
Doing all these things, and the cinematography changes. Yeah. It's so much brighter. It's so much warmer.
Yeah.
And
it's warmer despite it being, winter. Yeah. So it's more like autumn. It really uses those more autumn colors that are warmer, like the browns and the oranges and the yellows. Yeah.
And we see Evelyn doing all these things that show affection, that you can tell mean something to Cynthia, and it's cool. It's beautiful. And we see the chest that was, she was hiding in. But I noticed with this shot, the shot of the chest always has light playing over it in the previous shots of the chest. And it's this blue light and shadowy. And this was like sunlight. It was bright and it was warm. And they, then we see them moving the chest.
Yeah, taking the chest out of the bedroom.
Out of the bedroom, back into the closet where it was. And I think that was the really big statement. I mean, if not the biggest statement.
Well, I think, in that montage, it's also, they're doing couple things.
Yeah.
They're not just doing BDSM things. They're doing couple things. They're hanging out. They're talking. They're not talking, but still being together. And that's what Cynthia was really yearning for, I think.
Yeah.
And, Evelyn is, letting her, doing that with her as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, it's also at the end of that sequence, I believe, is when we see that shot of, Cynthia dressed up and walking between those lines of tape.
Yeah.
Because also before, the tape was in the scene, but it wasn't the focus of the camera. And so, it was a little blurred out. But at this point, no, you see it, it's in focus.
Yeah.
So... And so, that happens. And so the end of the movie is the start of the movie.
Yeah.
Where Evelyn comes up to the door, and then we see Cynthia, and, she drinks her water. She puts on her wig, and she looks at the mirror, and fade to black.
Yeah.
So what do you think, Dan? Happy ending?
I think it's a happy ending.
Okay.
It's a lot. It's a lot. Maybe it's not a happy ending, but it's again better than where they started, I think, because they've communicated in a way.
Yeah.
And it is so much brighter and much more warm, and I think that is communicated. I still don't think Evelyn loves Cynthia. I don't think. That's just me, though.
Really?
Yeah, but I think the film is saying that. And I mean, whatever. They love each other, sure. Who am I to judge? They love each other.
I mean, you're allowed to have your opinion. I mean...
I just think Evelyn's such a stuck-up, spoiled person.
Okay.
And we see that through the film, and it's frustrating. I don't know. I just... It's for me, they're so removed from normal society, and they have such privilege and luxury I mean, she says it, that it's just like, it's hard not to see all this as a little extra. But at the same time, you know, if you try and get past that, it is about the relationship, and it's, you know, these people are entrenched in that. So that's what they know, and that's how they operate. So that is their reality. So yeah, they do love each other. It's just hard to watch it and not have a little skepticism. And I think you are supposed to have some skepticism, at least in my opinion, you are. But yeah, I do think it was a happy ending. I think we have a compromise in a way, because they have managed to, again, communicate. They've managed to find out what both of their needs are. And I think that the end is showing some balance. Yeah. And it's showing Cynthia walking in the lines, but almost willingly and almost, well, I don't know. I mean, definitely willingly.
I mean, what do you think? I kind of relate to Cynthia because, you know, she's an older person like myself. You know, I feel the weight of age, which happens in this movie, you know, which is happening with Cynthia too. Yeah. So I feel like what's going on with Cynthia is like, well, it's not perfect, but it's the best I'm going to get. You know, that's how so yeah. I think Cynthia is in a, you know, it's that thing where, you know, if you don't cage a bird, you know, let it go and then, you know, let it come back. You know, yeah. Cynthia is a caged bird that chooses to be caged with Evelyn. I think that's what's going on in this movie.
I think that's a beautiful metaphor. A caged bird, but with the door open.
Yeah, with the door open. Yeah, yeah.
It's not like she's locked up.
But, you know, even though she's the dominant.
Exactly. Which means she's really not the dominant.
Yeah, yeah.
It's really, it's a good movie. I think it's a great, so much is said in it. And again, it uses film as a medium to its fullest, I think. Yeah. A great pick. I'm trying to think of what else to say about it.
I only have one thing to say. The cutaways to the Siamese cat. There's a Siamese cat in this movie. Yeah. And he's just used for cutaways. And that's what we learned in film school. Yeah. And I think like the example always used is like Robert Rodriguez. He had to go do reshoots of cutaways, and so he just used a dog. So whenever you make a movie, you have a pet somewhere. But then I wonder, well, because that cat, you know, most of the time is just laying around. So it's like, you know, how'd they get that cat to lay down? You know, is that a second unit shot where they just shot the cat for as long as they could and, you know, kept the camera on him until he lay down? Or did they drug him up? Because Hollywood these days, but this is a British movie, so anyway.
One thing I want to say about that, though. Yeah. I was watching that, I was like, what is that cat? Because it could mean nothing. It probably does mean nothing. But at the same time, I was like, this cat is just existing.
A beautiful Siamese cat.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking, this cat is just existing.
Yeah, yeah.
And all these people are so worried about their interpersonal problems and their weird kinks. I'm sorry, not weird. I'm trying not to be an asshole about it. It doesn't bother me, but okay. Anyways, sorry. Yeah. This cat is just trying to exist. Yeah. And all these people with their problems and their interpersonal problems and their kinks, and they're so caught up in all of it. But this cat is just vibing on the couch, and it's like it's removed. The cat is in reality, and they're in their own worlds. Yeah, and that's what I felt looking at the cat.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know, but it's also just a cat. It's also cutaway shots.
Yeah, but a beautiful Siamese cat.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful eyes, gray eyes. It looks so sweet and cuddly.
That's what this movie is really about. It's about a cat.
Yeah, it's about the cat.
About a cat just laying there.
Yeah.
Hopefully not drugged.
Hopefully not. Although you never know. It could be nice to get a little morphine in your system as a cat.
Well, I meant drugged by the production.
I know.
Okay.
Just chilling out, man.
That's true.
Vibing on some ketamine.
does ketamine value out? Let's not go there. Okay, anyway, so are we done?
Yeah, we're done, I think. Great pick. I do love the ending. I think it is trying to not give you a clear answer.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's supposed to give you mixed emotions. Great. I love it. Sierra would love this movie. I got to make her watch it.
Absolutely.
Because also she loves circular movies. This movie is circular.
Yeah, very much so.
Anyways, it's a great movie. Great pick.
Thank you.
Thanks for showing it to me. I
Thank you for watching
it. And I know we can always talk more about these.
Yeah.
But I think we did a good job with our time.
Maybe we will in our year in review episode.
I'm down.
Okay, awesome. Before we go, we'd like to give a shout out to the bestest friends of the show on our Patreon. Thank you, Brian, for your support of the show. If you'd like to be one of our bestest friends of the show, then check out our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/yourmoviemymoviepodcast. And thanks for listening. All right. Well, this is where we say goodbye, listeners.
Farewell. Adieu.
Take care.